Hello, everybody. Last time we invited Brent onto our show, the darn thing decided to glitch and kill the last 20 plus minutes of the show, which I believe was the most interesting part of the show. This is normal for Paranormal Portal Radio, but not generally for us. Even now, Google and YouTube are glitching on Brent's show like crazy, making duplicate shows, creating shows he never started, and simul-viewing them to audiences. If ever a show was haunted, this one is it. So come and sit down for a spell as we talk to my very good friend, Brent Thomas. Also, welcome our first sponsor, Montana Ranch Emu. Nothing better in the world than emu oil for heart health, healing skin and wounds in animals and humans. And if you use this channel specifically code when you make an order and you make an account, you can get 10% off your first shipment of products, SG206. In fact, right now on sale, the emu oil capsules. Best part about them is not only are you going to get the benefits of all the essential fatty acids, but you get all the non-essential ones, which have been linked to helping with rheumatoid arthritis, as well as osteoarthritis, younger looking skin, improved skin resilience, for those people who brush up against a surface and bam, they got a map of Texas as a bruise on their arm and they didn't even realize they'd done it. Helps to thicken, thinning skin. Fantastic products and one of the richest sources of omega-7s out there. And if you research into omega-7, you'll find that not only does it help with joints and heart health, but it also helps with your ability to function cognitively. So, okay, everybody can unmute themselves. Welcome back, Brent.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to take another shot at the title here. We get a full hour under our belt.
Yeah. The last, I think it was 22 minutes we ended up losing, and no recording, so I don't even remember what we covered. So whatever it was out there that didn't want us discussing it, whatever it was we discussed, I don't remember. They won. We may tread that ground again today. So right. Welcome back. And so tell what's been happening on the channel.
Oh my God, there's always something happening on the portal. Like you said in the intro, and I was really impressed that you caught all of those things, but the show is really, it's really got an energy of its own, and it seems to have a will of its own too. And it isn't always in synchronicity with my will. So weird things will happen. Like you just mentioned, the duplicate streams. So I do a live stream. I simulcast. We broadcast on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream, as well as simulcasting on YouTube. And somehow YouTube at the end of my broadcast, a live stream broadcast, normally then will process and create a video on demand so that people can watch it after the fact or whatever. Well, on two separate occasions, it created a duplicate of itself. So it created two video on demands and then started firing warnings at me for trying to post duplicate content. Are you kidding me? I didn't do this. And I emailed them, and they're like totally perplexed. They're like, well, this shouldn't be possible. Like, yeah, I know. I know. I don't know what to do. And they're like, well, don't worry about it. Just delete the extra one and you should be fine. But it's just the strangeness that comes with the show. But I actually love that about it, is that, and honestly, it is the only paranormal show in existence that I'm aware of that appears to be actually haunted.
It does seem like even if it isn't some kind of a ghost that's haunting it, it seems to be, well, it's like we discussed Maxwell's demon, which is just a thought. It's just a thought exercise about entropy. And I before when we were talking earlier, I was like, oh, you know what? This reminds me of something I'd read about, which Maxwell's demon, and I had to look it up. Like, yeah, that's it. It literally can look like that sort of thing when things start to break down on their own. But generally speaking, it has some kind of like what they call it, a forebear, something that goes before it, so you see it. These happen randomly, so I'm thinking it's got to be something that's living in your studio, and because I rarely try to see the astral in your studio, and it would probably be a good thing if I was to try and do that and go like, let me see if there's anything hanging around or something that's got like an anchor spot where it comes in whenever you're doing the show and is looking over your shoulder.
Right? Yeah, that would be awesome. Actually, I would love if you did that. Not necessarily that I want to change it, but I want to just know. I'm pretty sure there's a panel of them going, hey guys, watch this, and then they just see what they can screw up on the show. It's like, oh my God, and it usually happens at the most inopportune time. So like I'll have a guest, and I'm always stressed out when I have guests anyway, because there's like 50 things that I have to do, have to be mindful of, and I have to sync up with the network, with YouTube, and keep all the software in sync and rolling perfectly. And then something will just go sideways, and it's like, oh my God, it's the worst time this could happen. And my pulse just starts racing, and I start sweating, and it's just business as usual.
So what kind of really spooky things, this may have been where we were going, because I remember us asking this, but don't remember the answer. So what is the spookiest things that have happened to you, spookiest hauntings or things that you've encountered since starting the show, or even if there's worse before you started the show?
Well, I mean, I've had paranormal experiences my whole life, and I've had many different kinds of paranormal experiences. I've witnessed a UFO, and I know that they're there because I saw them. I've lived in haunted houses. I've lived around spiritual energies pretty much all of my adult life. Not much in my childhood, though. For some reason, where I grew up as a child, it just seemed like this void. As much as I wanted to experience the paranormal back then, nothing ever would happen. And I think it might be because it was very sacred Native American ground. And so that it just wouldn't lend itself to wandering spirits or energies or whatever. But in my whole adult life, I've experienced things. And during the show, probably some of the most creepy things was after relocating the studio. I'm pretty sure that there's an old woman that lives in this house, and she's not physically living, but she's living here. Because every once in a while I'll catch this old like lilac or kind of perfume in just random spots of the house. Just weird things will happen, weird malfunctions through the house, but it feels like it's benign, and it's just her letting me know that she's here. But when I decorated the studio down, in the new location in the house, when I was upstairs, it seemed to be okay, because I don't think that was an active part of the house during her lifetime. Like, she was mostly on the first floor. Being an older lady, she wouldn't use the stairs or whatever, is my hypothesis. So I moved down here into the downstairs area of the house, and I took over a room, and that's now my studio. But no matter what I did, everything I hung up on the walls would fall down. And over and over and over. And she particularly seems to hate the Ouija board the most. And it's it's never been used. It's never it's just out of the box from just as a prop. And I've even got the it glued so that nothing could happen with it. But she keeps knocking everything down, and I keep saying she because I'm a little bit sensitive myself, and I just keep getting this feeling it's an older lady that was a very religious person in life, and she doesn't quite get this. So.
Okay. So I want to say a quick preface story to add to the humor that's about to erupt. Real quick, there was a lady who I play games online with, who wanted me to check out her home to see, remote viewing, to see if there was a ghost there, and there was a ghost of a lady with red hair, and she's very attracted to this lady I'm talking about. Okay. And she usually watches over her shoulder from 2 rooms away as she's playing games online. And as I'm looking this over, there's this cat walking around my feet and looking at me. Keep in mind, I'm projected there to almost everybody else in the world who can see. Joel and I look like these little spheres that dart around. And we know this because there was a lady who used to be on the show that told us, but she says, all I can see is these little spheres going really fast throughout the house. It's like, yeah, that's Joel and I. And so the cat's looking at me, and later on, she's like, about 2 months later, she says, oh, and people tell me there's also a cat in my house. I'm like, you don't have a cat?
Oh, funny.
So here's the preface. I was on your show for the very first time, and I thought I saw a lady come in and look over your shoulder at the screen, and then walk away quickly because she realized she was on camera. So this is the same kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
And I was going to say this when you said your wife is Asian, because I'm like, that lady that came in, I was going to say, is that your mother-in-law? And now you're saying there's a lady that's like, it's the same situation. You don't have a cat?
Yeah. So that was the best thing ever when we found out when he was talking. It was like, "There's a cat. You don't have a cat?" We was all like, "No." It's like I realized it wasn't a cat there, and everybody was like, oh, "Okay, Sean, how's that cat going?"
Yeah, and nobody let me forget it for almost a year. So,
awesome.
Your cat is the lady who okay.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, there is no other people in my house other than my wife and my 3-year-old child. We have a cat, black
I'm
cat.
I'm gonna have to start bringing these things up when I see them, because it's, for me, it's just like, oh look, there's a person. So I don't know, man. It's like I'm sorry, I should have said something after, like I'm doing the interview with you, and then this lady walks in. I'm like, did he say his mother-in-law's coming to visit? And then she realizes that the camera's looking at her. She looks down at you, and then she walks quickly back the way she came in. I'm like, okay. And that's off to your right as you're facing the camera.
Okay.
Which I don't know what's there off to the right. She came in from the right, and then she went back that way.
This was on a recent episode?
No. It was our first one.
Okay, so when we were still upstairs. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Now, no, I'm actually perfectly glad that you told me now, because here's the thing. I mean, I'm working on developing my own site, my own vision and stuff. So it had come to me that this is a woman, and older woman, and just a very traditional kind of person. And I would catch the perfume every once in a while. And so for you to say that now is really cool, because if you'd told me that before, I would have thought, well, I was already programmed to expect to find an old woman because Sean said that. So since you didn't, and I discovered that on my own, it's actually it reassures and confirms what I was picking up, so I can help believe in my own ability a little bit here.
And I'm still getting used to the fact that now a great percentage of them have feet that I can see, because the cataracts aren't cutting it off. So, and my son's even asked me, he's like, how do we know that they're ghosts and not people? I'm like, well, if you don't know, son, when you were younger, I could have just had you walk up and poke him in the shoulder. Now you're 18. We can't do that. So you're just, and it's not like it's immediately apparent to myself. Unfortunately, it really isn't. Right. And some of them have auras too. So, it's really hard to tell. It's one of the topics of your show, and I don't know if you'd gone over that. It's like, well, how do we know? It's like, I don't even know. There's just there's nothing that makes it absolutely stark, unless, of course, you see them disappear and come back, or do something that they shouldn't be able to do.
Right. Now, here's the thing that's occurred to me. And, since we cover a whole lot of different people's encounter stories on the show, and the amount of people that are coming forward and saying, I talked to this person, he was right there, and then suddenly they were gone, and then I realized I was talking to a spirit. And it makes me wonder how many of us throughout the course of our days or weeks or months are actually bumping into and interacting with these manifest spirits, but we don't realize it because they look as real as everybody else.
Well, that's a good question. How do you know? I mean, you just have to. That's like one of those things you have to just look back on the encounter and just figure out on your own sometimes. Like, hey, I was talking to this guy, I looked around the corner, then they were gone, and there's no way they could move that fast. Mm-hmm. I've had that happen before a couple of times. Fortunate enough, I know what's going on.
Right.
But, it's a spot investigation is always a good thing to do. Just look around, see if there's any exit routes where a person could have tucked away real quietly, suddenly, and stuff like that. That's just, that's one way.
Right. But I mean, just like, if you're walking through a crowd, I mean, what if some of the things some of the people you're passing aren't really there? I mean, I just think that's a really cool thing. And for a case in point, a listener of the show, and Sean, her, it's Diana Orcutt.
Yeah.
And she's a wonderful person, but she was going through this situation. It was a story that she sent in and I read on the air, but her situation was she was her and her husband had bought some farmland and were dealing with cattle. And there was this one calf that was just being sickly, and they found it, in real tough shape out in the pasture. And so they brought it home, and she was really beside herself. And now they they bought or leased the property from this older gentleman that became really wonderful friends of theirs. And so she was dealing with this calf, and it was fading real fast, and she was really having a troubled time with it, and not sure how to deal with this because it's her first, real, situation like this. And so she was alone at home. I think her husband was in the shower, and suddenly the old gentleman walked up, and she said, "Oh, hey," and I forget his name. It was, we'll just say Bob. "Hey, Bob, how you doing?" And he said, "Good. So what's going on? You look like you're troubled." And she said, "Yeah, it's with this calf. We're having a real tough time, and it's just breaking my heart." And he goes, "Yeah, it takes a real strong person to do some farming." And she said she went and got him a beer, and he sat there. Normally, she said she noticed he never touched the beer. He never touched it at all. And then she said that she went to go look in the house quick, and when she came out, he was gone. She looked all over, couldn't see him, and didn't know where he went. And her husband got out of the shower, and she said, "Bob just stopped by, but all of a sudden he just disappeared. And I don't know where he went." And he goes, "That's not possible. Bob's in a coma. He's in the hospital." And, and it was just all of a sudden she was like, "Oh my God." So she literally wrote me about it right after it happened. And I was like, wow, how intense is that? But she sat and had a conversation. Now, I don't know if he's since passed away or if he's back on his feet or whatever, but he had emotionally projected to help her in a time of need. And
Well, it might not have been emotionally. I've had people in comas visit me, and they're sort of halfway in between. So their spirit actually comes to my apartment to hang out, but they're still in a coma. Yeah. That's happened to me twice.
Now, do they remember? Have you had them wake up from the coma and then say, "Hey, I remember being over there"?
They subsequently died, so I wasn't able to ask them. Both of them.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so powerful, though.
In the case of, it is. To have your friend is in a coma in the hospital, and he stops by and he's in your apartment, and he's like, "Can you see me?" Like all excited, like, "Oh my God, can you see me?"
Oh, really? So they knew they were projecting, and they knew that they were in a coma and stuff?
My friend did. My ex's mother was just sort of aimlessly wandering. She wasn't quite as aware.
Okay.
But yeah.
Wow.
But my friend was really sensitive and really like a magical person. So he was like really with it and as far as like what was going on.
In the case of my grandfather, the night that he passed on, when he slipped into a coma and he was dying, he came to me and told me, but I was asleep. So he and I were having a long conversation outside of his hospital room as he was dying.
Wow.
And I didn't know until after until after I woke up that he was gone. And when I told my family about it, my mom, she was immediately dismissive, but she got the information back to my aunts, and my aunts told me, "Oh yes," because here's what my grandfather told me. He came to me and said, "Your mother can't stop me anymore. Here I am. I need to talk to you really quick because this is going to end soon." And I said, "Well, am I dreaming?" He said, No. I've got some messages to give to you and some things we need to talk about." And he told me things I needed to hear. And when I told my aunts about it, they flipped because my grandfather said that he was going to get better and he was going to get out of this hospital and he was not going to let my mother stop him from seeing me anymore.
Wow.
And so they used to treat me like I was diseased before, but now, I mean, this was like they never wanted to talk anything metaphysical with me again.
Right.
Not after that. And my aunt says, he loved you very much. Like, well, yeah, that was a no-brainer. What are you telling me this for? I know that. I mean, I think that was patently obvious when he made sure that my mom couldn't stop him anymore. And
wow. It's very powerful, though. Those kind of interactions, I think, are so powerful. And the healing that I think that those kind of interactions inspire as well. I mean, when these presences, these loved ones manifest, I mean, what a cathartic experience to, know that it's okay.
Yeah, after that, I actually changed a lot because I realized that if I was worth visiting, and my grandfather, what was that important to somebody, even though the rest of them treated me like I was not that important, then there's something important. I didn't find out till years later that there was things that they'd spoken about, talked about, until I confronted people. I'm like, you know what? We need to lay all of our cards on the table. So did you ever have moments like that, Brent? Where I was like, yeah, okay, you know what? You guys been hiding crap. So let's just sit down and let's show everybody the cards that we have facing our chests like now.
Well, you know, for me, it's actually always been the opposite. What the one thing that seems to happen to me is that people bare their souls to me, and it's happened my whole life. And even people I've just met will suddenly just start telling me all about themselves. And you know, and of course, I'm a compassionate and loving soul, so I listen and try to give the best advice that I can and things. But I've not usually had too much issues with people being deceptive or hiding things from me. If anything, it's the opposite, where they volunteer so much, you know. But being an empath, that gets pretty heavy, you know, that I then have to, you know, carry that emotional weight, and you have to kind of bear the pain of other people.
Oh, uncomfortable silence there. So,
sorry, I got distracted by something.
That's usually how it's kind of indicative of how when people start talking about somebody you just meet start talking about their troubles, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay.
Right. Well, it's not that I don't know what to say. It's not that I don't know what to say. It's just one of those things where, how do you follow this up with that doesn't sound like you're overly trying to like stroke them and make them feel better, because it is,
or just insensitive.
Yeah, because and I thoroughly understand, but for the most part, for me, it was older folk would come and share wisdom with me, and and my mother would tell me, she's like, why is it you just stand there and listen? Like, because they're telling me something.
Yeah.
Good for you. And so I just listen. I just sit there and listen. But you sit there and you listen so patiently. I'm like, well, yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't I? Right? And then she told me about the story of what happened before I was born. What my grandfather said after he came out of his coma when he got hit by the car. This lady who'd hit him, and this other gentleman. Who is like the head of Santeria, who used to speak to now this is going to be kind of funny because everybody knows Ricky Ricardo, and you know when he sings Babalu, and people don't know that's a god's name, the Babalu.
Okay.
So when he's crying, he's actually calling to a god of health, who to keep away negative things and diseases and smallpox. He actually. So that's when they invoke that and he goes into that, it's almost like a prayer calling to him to protect. And so the head of Santeria, they refer to him as El Viejo, the old man, was consulted about my mom's disease because she had cysts and they were going cancerous. And this is when she was just found she was pregnant with myself. Wow. And it's those kinds of stories where you want to tell this kind of thing to people, but you don't know how far you can go. And I don't know it. And he actually was the one who told, and this was a consultation after my grandfather got out of his coma. Said, this person used to be, and is this crazy stuff like, your son used to be Charles de Gaulle. Nope. Sorry. I don't remember being Charles de Gaulle. Thank you. I don't. My mother says, but it's proof you started singing Frere Jacques when you were young. It's like, because Tom and Jerry. Trust me. Yeah. She's like, no. It's like, yes. Swear. Swear. I can even show you the episode, right? But because I'm a factualist about this sort of thing. There's no Charles de Gaulle in me. Promise. So, I don't believe that I was, King Richard the Lion-Hearted in a past life. Sure. And so, have you ever come across people that talk stuff like that?
Yeah, I do. And I always have people say, well, aren't you curious what you used to be in a past life? And I kind of take the same approach you do. It's like, whatever I was, it's what I was, and whatever I'll be is whatever I'll be. But I really got a lot of stuff to focus on right now.
Yeah, really.
This is what really requires my attention. I mean, it's wonderful and romantic to think about, what was I? What was my other experiences? But I don't know. I don't remember them, and even if I found out, I don't know that it would matter too much. I did have a kind of a past life reading once. I had a reading when I was 15, and the woman said that I was a druid in a past life, and that resonates with me, that it's probably the case, but still, it doesn't really change the present a whole lot, I don't think. You know, and I think people get so wrapped up in finding value in what they once were, and it's like, find value where you are now. Create your value in this moment.
There was actually a second series of Twilight Zone that was done, and a second series of Outer Limits, and I can't remember which one of them did actually cover that topic, where apparently everybody could remember their past lives, so their value in this lifetime was zero. And in some cases, people would actually let themselves die because they wanted to get back into the spiritual roulette wheel and see if they could win the lotto that way. And it's like, but it's such a waste. It's such a gigantic waste to worry about what was, and I might be able to win further down the line. And it's so contrary to really getting anything out of this lifetime, because there's so much here. It's like Yoda said, always did you look to the stars, looked away, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing.
Very true. Actually, Yoda is wise as hell. I love Yoda, because I mean, his favorite saying is, do or do not, there is no try.
Yeah, my whole family hates me because I throw that one at them all the time.
I love that line, though, because it's like there's so much wisdom in these little quips that he makes. But you know, I mean, yeah, it's a fictional character, but they drew on a whole lot of philosophy and to you know, create that dialogue. It's not true because it happens to be a Muppet, you know.
Yeah.
They got it from somewhere.
Right, exactly. I think Lucas was really involved in a lot of Eastern philosophy and stuff, and so that's where I'm sure it came from. But it's really Buddhist in his approach, I think.
And I fall back on his sayings because they work. Like Joel and I, when we were first working together, you know, the whole do or do not, there is no try. It's like, well, yeah, Joel, I guess we're just gonna have to do it. It's like, yeah, we're just gonna have to do it.
I agree. And that's really important. I think it's you know, it's very actualizing, because you know, it's so easy in our Western sensibilities. We have this idea that, you know, well, you know, I think we kind of just half-ass things by nature. You know, it's just, we kind of put ourselves out there, but we're so willing to accept that defeat. But I mean, if you really do your best, there's no way to fail, but you got to be honest with what your best is, you know. And that's where I don't think we really understand much anymore, because we're just so used to temporaries and disposables, and you know, no focus on building anymore. We just, you know, instant gratifications and stuff.
Yeah.
You
know.
One of the things that when you were on the show you discussed was that you tried something and it expanded your consciousness, and temporarily, and you didn't recommend people just going into it. And one of the things I meant to ask you is, because I know the answer for myself, because I've actually just encountered this. Have you encountered stuff that literally made you feel like you were trapped inside you, like it was like it diminished your empathy or anything like that?
As far as substances?
Yes, because I've actually Joel and I were both put on it as an allergy medication.
Oh, okay.
And him back in the 90s, and myself very recently, and I'm very mad at my doctor for it, because I can't remember the name of the medicine. I really would like to put it out there, but my God, it was horrible, because it felt like I felt so trapped within myself. It was, and I couldn't see astrally, and I couldn't reach outside myself. And every time I took one of these pills, supposing that was going to stop me sneezing, all it did was make me feel like I was crushed.
Right. No, I definitely have. And for me, it was when I was going through my divorce. I was married and divorced once before, and I was just crushed because it wasn't what I really wanted. And I was just devastated. And so I got a prescription of Prozac. And I tried it, and I probably took only 3 or 4 doses. And then I realized that it really didn't stop the hurt. It just stopped my ability to express it. And it also stopped my ability to feel anything. And to me, it was just like somebody had, deadened me, and I hated it. I just hated it. And so I threw the rest of them away. I was just like, nope. And I just went through it in a normal healing process, and I made it through. But the idea of pharmacological healing, I think, is just really, it's so counterproductive to any kind of growth and development.
I had a similar experience. I had a similar experience where a doctor put me on an antidepressant. I don't remember which one it was. It was one I hadn't heard of. And I just took a half of one pill, and I felt trapped inside myself. I felt I didn't have, like, I have synesthesia, so I can taste music. I can like see numbers and colors and stuff. And I had none of that anymore. And it was like the first day I had just bought a microphone. I was going to go record some singing for the first time. I had no creativity. I couldn't do any music. I was devastated, and I was like panicking, trying to get this thing to like wear off so I could get back to myself again. And I threw it out right after that. Yeah.
Good for you. Horrible. I just think we have a tendency to avoid our pain, and avoid our feelings, like we're supposed to be these automatons, and it's almost a mechanical expectation, but we're not mechanical. We are emotional, and we are spiritual, and if all of these substances, I'm pretty sure, are absolutely counterproductive, and I think they block us in so many ways. But
yeah, and you look at what was the cause of the depression. I mean, for me, it was a bad relationship. A pill's not going to fix that.
Right. Yeah. It's
and it's not going to help you deal with that.
It doesn't help you make better choices.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, I have to ask something really quick. Has anybody else been hearing another woman speaking?
Yes, I just heard it just a minute ago. I thought it must have been somebody's mic.
Yeah, that's probably my mic. My mother-in-law there in the kitchen is like adjacent to my room, so I was muted it off. Sorry about that.
The reason I was asking is because I was going to go. Am I hearing Brent's ghost? Because it's
she doesn't do interviews, as far as I know.
One of the things that I'd actually noticed is that certain ghosts that you can't hear as well, and I can't hear them as well sometimes, is that if you stand in front of a fan or something that creates a sort of a white noise, they'll appear. And I don't mean in the white noise, that you can hear them in your head better. And I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah. I have had that because I used to work in a laboratory, and I had to do a lot of cell culture in the hood, which has a really, really loud fan. And it was in a hospital. So I could hear the nurses. I could hear patients crying. I could hear babies crying. I was actually like getting nostalgia from people reading books. I could see what people were like watching on TV. It was really weird.
Wow.
And so that's what I was worried that was happening, and I'm like, but she'd be upstairs, right? That's for you. So
actually, I think she's down here. I think she's mostly down here, but
she is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do hope that you do reach out and take a look around, because I'd be really curious what you find out. And again, I'm not motivated to end it at all. I think it's absolutely cool. I've never been bothered by the paranormal, except for a dark entity that I dealt with for a lot of years. But other than that, I've always enjoyed that spiritual presences and enjoyed. I feel like there's a comfort in it, and I can't explain it, but it just feels familiar to me.
Well, now you've opened the Pandora's box. We all. So now I have to ask, what is that all about?
Well, I don't know where it came in. I don't know exactly when it happened, but I dealt with something really dark and ugly for about a decade. And it was a decade of hell. It was nothing short of a spiritual wrestling match for about a decade. I don't know. I actually even tried a form of exorcism at one point, but it didn't really work. And it may have loosened the hold some, but I mean, I was really having a tough time. And actually, I didn't know that I had it. I knew that things were darker, and I didn't know why. But I had a reading once by a really famous reader, and it was a gift to me from she was my cousin, but she was more like an aunt, like a second mom to me. And she gifted me this reading. and the lady read me, and this lady had been on Oprah, and she was really famous, and she read me, but she was reading someone that I didn't know. It was like, you're really quick to anger, you have real temper issues, and you know, you have a very dark side to you, and you really need to work on that. And it's like, who the hell is she talking about? Just perplexed. I was like, what is she getting? Because I literally, you know, and I'm not self promoting here, but I'm a very compassionate, loving person, and I a very caring and even keeled. I mean, it takes a hell of a lot to get me angry, and you know, it just was so foreign to me, and I was just really perplexed. And then one of my other cousins was like, what if they're not reading him? What if they're reading something attached to him? And that was when it started. I was like, oh my God, you know, then all of that darkness kind of made sense. It's like, wait a minute, I've been getting oppressed. I've been getting a spiritual oppression. And it all just started making sense. All of the weird, foreign, ugly thoughts and things that didn't fit and were just coming out of nowhere, and foul moods, and, you know, just feeling like you always have a darkness over you.
That's why at the end of your last show, you were like, what I said, you had this look in your eyes on the show. Your eyes went wide. I was watching you as I was telling the end about the exogenous feelings that these things can shove into you.
Yeah.
You had this look like somebody just walked over your grave, and I'm like, what the heck?
That was it was very familiar. What you were saying was very familiar. It's like, oh yeah. But I'll tell you that I think that those kind of wrestling matches, and I certainly would never promote them to anybody. I swear to you, they're about the most dark and desperate things you'll ever want to encounter. But I will tell you that when you emerge from it, if you're victorious, it does change you, and it also leaves a footprint in you, and not always in a bad way. It's like my abilities became so much more profound after that experience. So I don't know if it's because I was dealing with something on a purely spiritual level for that long, that, you know, it's kind of like a muscle. When you exercise it, it gets stronger, or if that presence leaves a footprint and unlocks some doors that would have remained closed. I don't know.
In my experience, I've actually found that it's it is all the exposure. It's sort of like something sitting in a radioactive environment picks up the radiation, and I'm not saying this is like, oh yeah, it's deathly. I mean, it's just you're exposed to the radiation, and it expands. Like when my wife and I first came together, she had almost next to no abilities whatsoever, and now she has a ton. And each time she got pregnant, her abilities took a huge leap forward. And she's never ever tried to expand them or learn how to use them. Right. So mere exposure, in many cases, is enough to awaken the sleeper within.
Right.
Well, everybody who please forgive me for using a Frank, what's his name, from Dune, Herbert. Sayings that you awakening the sleeper so that you can start expanding your consciousness. And that's why a lot of people want to go and get where things, oh yeah, I want to go where the big hauntings are and the dangerous stuff is. And, you know, and that's why when I come out, you're just like, no, just go to the silent movie theater, or, you know.
Yeah. I don't know good. Why people want to encounter darkness. I don't know, because when you really have encountered darkness, it is, I don't know if people can understand what it's like to feel something that is pure hatred, that is pure dark and pure evil.
I think it's because hunger also. I think because some of it is like romanticized in some books and movies. Like, you know, a person goes into a dark area and then they come out and they're stronger and more and a better person because of what they went through. Well, that's fine.
Or they think that the good stuff isn't going to be interesting, or it won't be as powerful, and they want like a clear experience.
Sure.
Which isn't true, but maybe they think that. I don't know.
To quote from the Hercules movie, if he escapes, if it's good. Because it's an if. Like, how many people you only hear, oh, they made it. It's like, yeah, those are the stories you hear about because that person lived to sit down and put down something on Reddit.
Yeah,
exactly. but it's certainly nothing to tempt and nothing to play with. And it's that old idea that if you challenge the universe, something's going to answer. And I don't think
be careful what you ask for.
Right.
Seriously, because you can have a lot of good, like strong experiences from good things. You don't have to go looking for the bad stuff. Mm-hmm. You can get a lot of power from doing good.
I agree. That's very profound.
So, where was the good experience you've had in this sort of thing? What was the most profound good thing, or some of them? Just give us a few.
A few of my experiences.
The good and happy kind. I want to have some rainbows and unicorns, and not so many dark entities that we barely slip past, and the power of Christ compels you type situations. You know what I mean? We keep hitting those like speed bumps at 50 miles an hour, and I want to go over some good ones.
Well, honestly, most of the paranormal doesn't really freak me out. It really doesn't. I've had some really profound. There's only one time I was really freaked out. And it's a story I've shared a few times on the show, but I'll share it here just for the sake of doing it. But this one kind of creeped me out. So it's kind of not really answering your question, but I'll get to some others that didn't creep me out that I thought were pretty cool. But the one that really creeped me out was I was married with my first wife at the time, and we lived in this house. It was a brand new house. There was, it was in a development area, so it wasn't like it used to be weird desolate land or anything. It was just an empty lot for the longest time, but it was developed into a house. My uncle owned it, and he ended up renting it to us because he was going to turn over and sell it, but he wanted to get some income for it, and we needed a place to go, so we live in there. Now, the one problem with this brand new house was if you're in the shower and anybody does anything with water, you're going to get an ice cold shower. Like flush a toilet, turn on the sink, whatever. It's just like, pow, instantly your shower is going to go ice cold. It just sucked. So one time I was working, and I used to work in a factory, and I got done, and my wife was still off at work, and we didn't have any kids or any pets or anything like that. So I was like, I get to go home, and, I get to go home early that day because we worked long or whatever. And I was all dirty, and I got in the house, I locked the door, and I was thinking, yes, I can take a shower, and it can actually be a nice, warm, long shower. And I was really excited about that. So I locked up all the house. I locked myself in the bathroom, got all ready, got in the shower, and I'm having this wonderful shower. And I'm just soaking in the hot water, and I'm lathered up. I'm just full of soap and just in my moment. And all of a sudden, the water just went, pow, ice cold. And I'm like, no, she must have got home. And I don't know what it was with my ex-wife, but there was never a better time to do dishes than when I was in the shower. So suddenly the water just got ice cold, and I'm like, oh God, she got home. Oh no. And I just quickly rinsed off in this ice cold water, and I'm like, oh, and I'm freezing. So I shut off the water quick, and I'm in the bathroom, locked in the bathroom, and I hear water just blasting. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I open the shower curtain, and in the sink in front of me is the hot water just blasting. It's the hot water on, the steam coming out of there. And I'm like, I don't know what
I think the biggest question is, how do you know all of those other times were really your ex-wife?
Well, that's true. There is that.
Good point.
But I don't know what it is about.
I'm blaming her the whole time, and it might not have always been her.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I could still be married. No, I'm just kidding. But I was sitting there, and I was naked, and something about being naked and having a creepy thing like that happen just makes it so much worse. And it's not like a layer of fabric is really that much protection, but it's the idea that you're not naked. So I was like, and I quickly got everything shut off. I went and checked the house, and I was still alone. And so it was just, that house was weird. There was footsteps in there, and one of the coolest thing also happened in that house, Sean, and that was when I saw for the first time. And at the time, I didn't know what these things were. And it wasn't, till since then. This is back when I was in my early 20s. And so that's like, about 20 years ago. And I'm sitting on the floor in the same house where, that happened, and many other things like footsteps happened. But I'm sitting there watching television. My wife is in bed asleep, and I've got the whole house lit up. And I'm sitting on the floor. And at that time I was smoking a cigarette, and suddenly this little orb of light appears, comes into my field of vision from the left side, and floats right in front of my face, about a foot away from my face. And this thing's a little golden ball of light about the size of a quarter. And it's just drifting there, and it's drifting slowly past me. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, hey, I could grab that. And then I thought,
what?
Well, you know, I mean, I was just seeing this ball of light disappear, and I didn't know what it was. And I was like, no, I should not grab that. So I decided not to reach out and grab that, but it drifted right past me and then disappeared. But it was like this little sun, for lack of a better term, not quite as bright, but it was this luminescent ball of golden light, and it was really beautiful. And there's only one other time I've experienced that, and that was in this house, where I woke up to make coffee in the morning, and I was walking into the kitchen, and around the cupboard came another golden ball of light that was swooping around about a foot off the floor, came around the cupboard, went past my feet, and disappeared. So those I thought were really cool.
When we see those in the house, it usually means that we're going to have mead missing from the cabinet that I just made.
Oh, the Fae?
Yeah. That's what it usually means for me. I mean, that's why we switched from having corks.
But it was a ghost.
That's when we switched from using corks, because they go, yeah, corks, that's not going to stop us. Punches it right down into the neck of the thing. Instead, we now have those the clasps that hold the rubber. Yeah. That works so much better.
Oh, now that's interesting, because Don just brought over some mead the other day, and the thing kept popping its own cork.
Yeah, see?
Well, yeah, that's how it's supposed to do it. It pops out, not in. Sean's having a problem where the Fae are popping it into the bottle.
Yeah, they punch it down the neck into it.
Which is backwards.
Just backwards. It's like vacuum. I would go out to the garden, and I would say, have you little pixies been screwing with my mead? Because now there's cork in it, and now it's not good enough to drink for anybody until I strained it out. And if you just listen, right, as the wind blows through the trees, you could hear this little laughter. I'm like, oh, you little pixies. Okay, so now I'm gonna make it so you guys can't get in there. Ha ha. Okay. So
yeah, speaking of
something else to mess with to get even with you.
It's a tug of war. It's not even a horrible thing. It's because I know they watch after us, but so if I scold them, they don't care, and they know I'm going to put meat out for them in the fairy ring. They know I make it all for them, really, and they're happy with it. But I just don't want them making messes with the mead.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, see, that's really cool, and I guess that's a possibility. I'd never considered that what I was seeing was pixies, but it could be. I guess I don't know.
Lived in a house. I lived in a townhouse that was super duper haunted with like scary stuff, and I saw an orb. It was about the size of a large grapefruit come out of the bedroom that they all hung out in, and like float through the hallway, over the banister, and down the stairs. And I'm like, oh, orbs are real. We did not have pixies in that house. It was all scary stuff. So I don't know. It could be either one.
Right. It could be. But I've always been absolutely fascinated with the whole pixies and the idea of the Fae being there. And there's these worlds that are hidden from our normal view, but they're there. They're right there. I love that.
They took our cat Drake because they liked him so much. And my son, no, he's gone. I put him outside to go to the restroom. He never goes far from the house. And I come out to go get him, and he's gone. He was there like a few seconds before I was watching him, went to the restroom, came back out, and he's gone. Wow. And I would have sensed if he died and I looked on all the streets, so there's no corpses anywhere. If any animal dies on our block, I usually end up being the one who bags them and takes them out to the desert and buries them, because the animal control is they're completely overstretched. They just don't have enough time to be able to do these things.
Sure.
And so I want to make sure that the offal is gone and it doesn't attract coyotes to the neighborhood. And so I ended up doing that, and Drake was gone. He's just gone. And I had to explain this to my son, that he's like, oh, does that mean he's dead? It's like, no, it means that he's going to age probably about 2 days for every year, and they're feeding him well, and he's happy. It's like, how do you know? I'm like, because he's in Tirnanog. Everything's cool. Trust me. It's like, well, I want him back. I'm like, he's not coming back. This isn't a matter of he's road splatter somewhere. They figured they like this really cuddly black and white kitty cat that loves everybody, and trust me, it's better for him too.
Oh,
so And so it wasn't until this series came on called Magus Bride that he actually got to see a graphical representation of why it happens. And I told him, like, this is why it occurs. The links to the Fey realm for mortals only comes at the equinoxes. That's the only time that you can get in or out. And I said, so that's the reason why you'll never see Drake, because for him, it's only been 14 days. You know?
Right.
He's only been in there 14 days. It's for him, he's not really missing us yet.
That's really cool. So he's still gone then, yeah.
Oh yeah, he's gone. If he suddenly shows up and he's not a day older, it wouldn't surprise me. But I told you what happened with Baron when they decided, oh, you want him back? See, we took the other one. We feel guilty. We'll bring this one back from the grave. That one flipped me out.
Yeah, that's a little spooky, but cool, but spooky.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you were going to say, talk about some of the nicer episodes, the more.
Oh, sure. I mean, the other thing that happened, and it might have the other one that's in my head. I mean, there's hundreds of them, but I'm trying to think of really cool episodes. There's, let's see, one time I was walking through the dining room, and this might freak a lot of people out. But I used to own this Victorian home. It was built in 1894. It was a beautiful old house, and I spent a lot of time and money and effort restoring it and fixing it up and stuff. But it was a wonderful home, but it had a presence in it as well, and not malicious, again, just somebody that was there. And I don't know what was going on that day, but I remember I was walking to go out of the house, and it was just after my divorce. So things were still kind of up in the air with me, and I didn't have a lot of furniture that I used to have. So I walked through the dining room on the way to the door to go out. And in the dining room, there's this chandelier that hung down, and it was a really pretty older light. It wasn't a real expensive one, but it was, it was decent. And I walked through the room because there was no dining room table. So I walked straight under it. And then I got to the door, but I had the feeling I had to turn back. So I turned back and looked back into the room. And just as I did, the chandelier that I just walked under pulled out of the ceiling and smashed onto the floor.
Oh my God.
And now see, that should freak me out, right? But the only thing I thought was, damn it, now I got to fix that, So, I mean, it's for some reason it's not been incredibly traumatizing to me. I just find it really cool, to be honest with you, except when they wreck stuff. That to me is like, that's like an affront to me. It's like, I get indignant about that. It's like, okay, now you're creating work for me. This is not cool, but still the idea that it happened and it was such a pronounced event, I think is cool. And I think it really is profound.
So, Joel, got any last minute questions? We're going to have to wrap this up.
No. Yeah, I do. Do we know if we are still on air? Just curiosity. I don't know if we lost the last 20 minutes like last time.
We're on here. It's showing we're still live.
Yay. There's a pulse.
I love it when it works.
You still have to do the press any key to continue. Oh, where's the any key?
Here's the any key. You're welcome.
That's that was some awesome, very interesting encounters. I was just enjoying that. That's cool. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome.
Well, you guys have been amazing, and it's wonderful anytime we can get together and have a conversation. But we're gonna have to do another roundtable on the show as well. So
I meant to ask you what inspired you to try that. That was gonna be one of the last questions I want to ask. Us. I would never thought to try that with just how many of us I thought were on your show that were gifted like we are.
Well, I think it was one of those situations where I was reading a story. And then I thought about, well, what would Sean say? And then I thought, well, what would Deb say? And what would Dee say? And I was like, and I was just thinking out loud. I was like, maybe we should have a show with all them on there and we can ask them questions like this. And then it was like, what would you guys think? And the chat room was just like, yeah, get them on. That'd be great. So
I noticed the questions that you were coming up with. We didn't even get hip deep into them before people were just dialing in.
Right.
And I thought, because he said, "Oh, the lines are open." I'm like, "Oh, that may not have been an ideal way for us to get through this whole thing." Although it is a good thing. People are going to go, "Yeah, no, we can ask all of our questions." But oh my gosh, it was so. We did. I remember getting it. We waded in. We were ankle deep, and then the phone call started, and I thought, "Oh wow."
It was a good show, though. It was really good.
It really was, and
it was a lot of fun.
I was really excited that it went so well. Like everybody was able to talk, and everybody had their time, and everybody participated. So it was just perfect. I was really thrilled with it. I think
it was wonderful. I loved it.
Oh, thank you. I think I have a lot of work to do with learning, how to because I mean it's really incumbent upon the host to keep things rolling, and I think it went wonderful. Don't get me wrong, but I listened to it and I reflect and I think, well, maybe I should have, tried to field this a little more balanced than this, and it was more just to the fact that I have to be a better traffic cop, but it was my first foray into it. But you guys were all brilliant.
That's okay. You're learning. It's just a learning experience.
Exactly, and that's the way I talk it up as. But I mean, everybody loved it, and they can't wait for another one. So we'll be doing it again.
What did they say? Because I was not able to pay. I'm not like Diane, where she was focused on the chat room. She was so focused on the chat room, and I'm trying to stay focused on all the questions that people were asking, because I'm thinking to myself, this stuff. I don't want to be like centerpiece, and I think I said it afterwards. Somebody, when one of the guys came on and says, "This question is for Sean," and all the rest, I'm like, "Don't do that." Don't,
no, you were not hogging the spotlight at all.
Okay, it's not the and the rest. No, it's the professor and Marianne too. Just throw that line in. Throw that line in.
But that's the nice thing. And I think everybody felt like they had a chance to address the things they wanted to, and they spoke up when they needed to. And it wasn't the biggest thing I was worried about with that show was, is it going to be a train wreck of, everybody trying to say something at once? So, but I think we handled it well, and everybody was wonderful. So we'll definitely do it again.
What were some of the things that we surprised you the most on that show? Because it's rare to get the interviewers a chance to say what they're feeling, because you're trying to get everything to come out, all the information to come out. But what was going through your head during that episode? Because
mostly what was going, and again, you have to remember that in those situations, I was handling a whole lot of logistics as well. So for me, the biggest thing after the episode was, oh my God, it worked out well. Oh my God, that was because all the way through, it's like holding your breath for 2 hours. It's just like, okay. And here comes the break, and are we going to get the conversation wrapped up before break? And then will I remember what we were talking about when we come back in? And I got to check the levels, I got to check the chats, and check the streaming strength and everything. So honest to God, for me as the host, it was mostly logistics and being absolutely relieved at the end of it that everything worked out so well. But I will tell you that the thing that I loved the most about that episode was having all of you guys on there and hearing your different perspectives and how they were unified and yet distinct. Each one of you has a very similar vision, but it's also very distinct. And to get that opportunity to have so many viewpoints in one moment, I thought was so powerful.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to. Okay, so like what was the stuff that stood out in that regard, that was something from the show that you can mention that really caught you as profound? Just give an example.
Well, like for instance, when we were talking about protections and things of what to do, each one of you guys chimed in with a very similar but distinct message, and you drawing from your thaumaturgy, or how do you say it again?
Thaumaturgy.
Thaumaturgy, and I'll always trip over that. I just my personal dyslexia. Thaumaturgy, and from Deb coming from her very very psychic medium kind of ways, to Dee coming at it from her shamanistic, and Joel coming at it from the shamanistic approaches, was really cool, because we got such a robust answer to what normally would have been like, well, you can do this, this, and this, and then go look for other ideas. But we had so many ideas right there on the panel that it was awesome, that I felt like we were getting complete information and so much more refined information, because there were so many different viewpoints, and you guys would build on each other. Like, oh, I agree with what Diane said, but let me add this. And it was really cool because every idea built on each other.
I thought the coolest one was when you helped that guy. He was like, there's all these energy bursts happening. And then, you know, it's like, oh, that's coming from you. Like, that never would have occurred to me. Like, that's coming from you. So, yeah, that was very cool.
And that's a great point, because not only that, but Lewis got 3 or 4 affirmations about it being that the lead worker that he's working with, them working together, was what was.
Yeah.
So that was such affirmation to that.
It's so helpful to people.
Right. Exactly.
Sometimes it's always good to have that outside viewpoint, and especially have like 4 people with that outside viewpoint that has had that experience,
right,
and has experienced it from their own cultural lenses and everything. That it makes it helps, gives you that whole picture. It's like a holistic approach to holistic being.
Right.
Yeah, and you're not just helping the person who's calling, but you're helping anyone who listens to it who have had a similar experience.
Right.
So.
Yep, exactly. And the other thing that I thought was really, really profound for me personally was when you guys were each taking turns talking about how you developed your abilities, because that's something that I'm very interested in. So instantly I had 4 different perspectives on things that you guys have done to develop your sight and develop your vision and your ability. And so it was really, really cool.
So I'm going to wrap this up then. And it was wonderful having you. We finally got to the end of the hour for the first time ever. I hope this isn't going to be the only time ever. So hopefully Maxwell's demon does not decide to visit the show again, and hopefully stays away from yours. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. And remember, stay blessed until next we meet. See you next time.